Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to HT Brand Studio Live, the show in which India's top CXOs, influencers, and thought leaders share their insights into the hottest topics in marketing, branding, and business. The show in which we decode a rapidly changing marketplace, and that is certainly an understatement for the day. I'm Ramit Arora, and I'm with a brand new set of leaders or brand masters, as we call them, and I can't wait to introduce them today. Today's episode is gone virtual. We're no longer in the middle of the newsroom. We're certainly missing all the hustle and bustle of it. But digital is the new reality. And cliched as it may sound, the show must go on. On that note, let's get to today's episode. The current situation is completely unprecedented. There's widespread confusion, some panic. The entire global economy has taken a hit, and many businesses are scrambling to minimize the impact. In times like these, many of us are slashing marketing spends. And it's tough to argue with priorities. On the other hand, it's well researched and documented that companies that stay top of mind and relevant with their customers during a crisis get out in front. It's tricky terrain. In either case, brand continuity planning, BCP, should be a critical component of business community planning, also BCP. No brainer. But is it? And what does it look like in today's times? A McKinsey study tells us that businesses that overcame the 2008 economic downturn were those that stood by their customers, engaged with them, served as a voice of reason and consistency. And I'm pretty sure somebody somewhere once said, when times are good, you should advertise. But when times are bad, you must advertise. I don't know if that's good advice, but for more perspective, it's time to turn to our guests. My first guest is Karthi Marshan, Chief Marketing Officer, Kotak Mahindra Group. He's also a co-founder of Sher Khan, one of India's leading retail brokerage firms. In a previous avatar, Karthi held the marketing function at IDBI Bank. Welcome to the Brand Studio Live, Karthi.
Thank you, Ramit.
Brand continuity planning, is it consuming mind space these days? Important, less priority? How are you approaching?
I don't think there's any debate that it is consuming a hell of a lot of mind space. But I think in order of priority right now, because this is something that gets discussed every time there is even the hint of a threat of a recession. Marketing spends are the first on the chopping block. I'll say this, which I think will be slightly counterintuitive for my fraternity, which is if it's a contest between protecting jobs and spending on marketing, I will always vote for protecting the jobs first. But I don't think we're there yet. I think we're a long way away from needing to worry about it, though I know job losses globally have been significant already. My sense is so far in India, at least on a general sense, we are not at that point yet. So we continue to make scenario plans for all different possibilities. If lockdown actually clears up at the beginning of May and we are all back at work soon thereafter is scenario one. If it lasts another 3 months, 6 months, if COVID is here to stay and we all have to figure out ways to live with it and continue to work like this almost permanently. So like someone joked that instead of a 1 month vacation in the year, if we have 1 month equivalent visit to the office and 11 months of work from home, then of course life is going to change dramatically and brands' work will also change quite dramatically.
What about from a consumer point of view? The world
right.
Changed.
Yeah. So I'll say the obvious first there. I think it's obvious that consumers will always consume staples, FMCG products. They all need to bathe and brush and so on and so forth. So I don't think those categories will suffer. Within those categories, though, I think the wisdom is there already, and you said some of it yourself, which is that the brands that stay salient are the brands that are going to win. So brands must spend. And this I know is music to publishers all over. media owners in general. But it's also a truism and a truth. There's no debate about that. Naturally, if we end up going more and more digital, if as we are observing, there is a shift or a spike in OTT, for example, the where we spend our money and how we spend our money quite likely will change. What I think consumers need most right now is reassurance, and that's what brands are about, right? Brands are fundamentally a promise of predictability, saying everything's okay, don't worry, here we are exactly how we used to be. And that job that brands have to serve will continue, in my view, and actually should.
And there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of paranoia. Is there a role for brands through all that?
Take Coke, for example. Coke is another brand that grew out of the first Great Depression quite dramatically. What does Coke do? It's sugared water. It does no good to my health. But if I want to give myself a break, if I want to feel good about myself in spite of the circumstances around me, and I can afford to buy a Coke every now and then it makes me feel better about myself, and it gives me confidence to deal with all the shit that is getting thrown at me. So in that sense, I think all brands at every spectrum, take a financial services brand like mine, people are going to be worrying about money, there is no doubt about that. But people are also going to be worrying about how to manage the money they do have, how to spend it sensibly, efficiently, but they also don't want to end up feeling miserly. They don't want to end up feeling like Scrooges. They want to feel pampered as well. They want to feel, that's actually fundamental. Our most important instinct is to feel good about ourselves. So everything that brands can do to play a role in that meaningfully, I think we will have an opportunity.
I think the impact on this is going to be far more than what we assume. So if we divide India into India 1, India 2, India 3, I think the impact on India 2 and India 3 is far bigger than what India 1 is. And that's where I feel there is the impact is still unknown, and rightfully, because we still don't know a lot about the unknown. So in that context, do you feel do you still analyze that the impact is limited?
No, I am not suggesting at all that the impact is limited. Like you said, we are in uncharted territory. Nobody knows on a day-to-day basis right now where and how this is going to end. So nothing I say is confident crystal ball gazing about how it's going to play out. My limited input is only in the context of the role that brands have to play, regardless of how this plays out. And people will hurt. We know that unemployment rates, particularly in the Western world, are already at an never before seen high. We haven't got there yet in India so far. We don't know how it's going to play out as well. But regardless of what happens to unemployment, what happens to incomes, consumption will continue in one form or the other.
If you were to pick up, let's say, the top 1 or 2 irreversible consumer behavioral changes that you're seeing come out of this, because I agree with what you said. I mean, different industries, industries may not go away. They'll come back. They'll bounce back at different points in time. Maybe, the recovery for travel, hospitality, auto will be longer than, let's say, FMCG, if they take a hit at all. But consumer behavior, I'm sure you would agree, has changed irreversibly on certain parameters, right? What would you think some of those are? Maybe 1 or 2.
Consumer behavior is fundamental, universal, and doesn't change over incredibly long periods of time. And I'm actually saying, in some sense, and at an eon level. So the categories we consume will change inevitably. Like, crude example, we stopped using pagers as soon as mobile phones solved for many of those problems. And I can give this example because I'm old enough to have lived through that. From the caveman days, one thing that we have done, we've consumed food, and we've also consumed information which has turned into entertainment from the caveman days, right? Whether it's painting on walls, which was educating our young about how to survive the wildlife out there or how to hunt for wildlife, to the point where all of it became art. And so there was a lot of tribal art, etc., etc. We've seen that navigation of things that were started for information turning into entertainment. I think in that sense, we are universal beings who, for the bulk of our life on earth, we've not changed very dramatically.
And on that note, Karthi, I also need to say thank you to you for having started us off on what looks like is going to be a very, very interesting discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My next guest is Pavan Sarda, Group Head Digital, Future Group, who also happens to be a very good friend. Pawan has close to 20 years of work experience in retail, housing, digital content, and commerce. From being part of the startup team of Big Bazaar to heading the marketing function for future retail, he's pretty much seen it all. Welcome to Brand Studio Live, Pawan. It's wonderful to have you here. Let
Thank you
me
so
let me
much. Yeah, thank.
let me ask you this. You know, clearly right now everybody is looking at, or I would think consumers are looking at affirmation, trust, and a lot of positivity. Is there a case for brands to come across as responsible, or should I say more responsible, more balanced, not opportunistic at this point? Is there a fine line to tread? Uh, how do you think brands should be approaching this period of uncertainty?
I think, firstly, I feel that any brand and every brand, I think, needs to be human at this stage. I think that's the most important thing, right? I think the way solidarity, which we can see it in the country across the people, I think the brands also need to showcase that. If you look at retail as a brand, if you look at Big Bazaar as a brand, it's largely created in terms of driving consumption. And if you look at even consumption is driven through lots of fear and greed, right? I think fundamentally that's what we have done in last 20 years. So what should we do today? Because I think it's just a change in personality, it's the change in body language. But at this point in time, what we have done is we have just kind of taken a backseat and said, how would a human behave at this point in time? Let's react like that for our consumers, right? I think the most fundamental point for retail at this stage, for a consumer to come and interact with any of the retail brand is, I think trust and safety actually comes the first in my head, right? It's very, very important for a brand like ours to demonstrate that, right? And stick to it. I mean, this cannot be a lip service. This cannot be a service which is just said in advertising and you don't demonstrate, right? And I think there is a lot of change. I think our formats, our retail stores are going through, and so will our communication. I think there is a lot of hand holding with the consumer, assurance, trust. These are the words which comes into my head, while we are doing anything. I think fear and greed needs to take a back seat and really demonstrate that. We also need to create positivity. We also need to create that sense of, like moving on. I'm hoping that after lockdown, some of our brands should be able to do it, right? No rule book on this at all, so to say. But yeah, I mean, just about listening a lot to customers is very, very important to us at this point in time.
What about responding to customers? Are there lots of questions coming your way? Is there a lot of customer interaction?
Oh
So
yeah,
many
absolutely.
categories.
Absolutely. I think, while I think this is such a unprecedented time right now, I don't think any retail format across the globe is kind of ready to react to it, right? And there are times where we have also kind of, maybe not addressed our customer in the best possible way as we would have wanted because of just about lack of time and lack of reaction, at any point in time. We did not know on like 24th that, there's going to be a 21 days lockdown and so on. I don't think anybody was prepared. But the good thing about is when we hear from the customer, they're completely understanding. I think they are far more thankful at this point in time than anything else. And that brings or that gives us a lot of responsibility to behave in a certain way. I think that's how we are reacting. That's how we are listening to our customers.
Do you have an exit strategy in place? I mean, how does one get out of this?
God knows. I think no one has any exit strategy at this point in time. As I said, the only thing which we want to do is right now is be human as a brand and really kind of handhold with our customers and really react towards what they want, what's important to them at this stage. I think that's all which we intend doing it, and we will take it as it comes. I mean, that's all is there in our head currently.
Okay, so the retail landscape is going through so much change with the Geo Facebook merger happening. So how are you going to create a competitive advantage for yourself?
Firstly, I think let's look at, I mean, I'm going to talk more about our organization. If you look at, we've fundamentally been a very, as they call it, physical retail, offline retail, whatever you call it. But I think, lots of organizations have gone through changes and I think adapted new forms of engaging with the customer. We realized that fundamentally Big Bazaar never had I think digital way of distributing or engaging with the customers. Within no time, I think in 10 days we built our own platform. Right? We realized that at this point in time it's very, very important that let's leave the comfort to the customer as he wants to engage with us, whether they want to come to the store or we need to go to them. And I think that's one of the reasons we have made some of these quick changes in the way we do our business. So firstly, as I said, e-commerce platform was built in like a record time of 10 days, and it's still in the process. We're still learning, but the good part is we've been able to do substantial number of orders on a daily basis. And of course, I think with the whole Reliance Smart and Geo Mart and everything, I think I'm sure that there's going to be a habit change among consumer, hopefully.
Tell me, what does social distancing in the retail sense look like? Like when the stores open, right? What would we expect when we walk into a store? Let's say for the next 3 to 6 months. Like, would it? Because what I'm currently seeing, I made one visit to the local supermarket because we ran out of everything, and that doesn't seem sustainable at all, right? I mean, the kind of real estate costs that you carry, if you're able to allow just about 100 people to come in and shop through let's say through a morning. So is there any sense on what that will be?
So currently I can tell you what we're doing at this point in time. I think we are just completely following government norms, and therefore I think social distancing is something which is very important even at the store when you go to any of the Big Bazaar right now. So at any point in time, we don't allow more than 7 to 8 or 10 customers inside the store, and we really urge them to bring their list so that the shopping time is as shorter as possible. So that we are able to get many more people. But fundamentally, I think you're right. In terms of how is it going to be a sustainable model, but I think as retailers, we all need to be innovative. I think there are many ways in which I think we should be able to address many of our customers. For example, book online and pick from the store. So I'm hoping that what they want, we should be keeping it ready for our customers, and therefore when they come to the store, they shouldn't be spending more than maybe five minutes or so. And I hope a lot of retailers come out with a lot of innovation and we are able to address many more customers. I mean, that's something which is top of our mind priority at this stage.
Two things. One, now that really, this whole situation has forced us to think far more digital. Are you guys thinking of actively deploying robotics, drones? Are you guys thinking of doing better data analytics? Is that the thinking of deploying more AI, ML in the business?
Yeah, I think, as I said, that, all the retailers, whether online, offline, we will have to kind of rejig and rethink ourselves in the way we do business. Of course, data is a very important part, and I think it'll really help us to get more out of consumers and expand our business for sure. There's a lot of focus already, but I think post-COVID, I think it'll challenge us to, bring far more focus to this area. There's no doubt about it. And also, I think from a marketing standpoint, it's far more efficient, which we are looking at it because of such rich data which we carry. I think, expanding and giving that comfort, even from an e-commerce point of view, will a little more easier for us. Even from a customer acquisition point of view than anybody else.
That note, Pawan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Having you on the show. My next guest is Tarun Katyal, CEO Z5 India. Tarun is considered one of the most successful executives in the Indian media industry. In fact, he was part of the team that won the first Media Gold at Cannes. Tarun has a robust body of experience across platforms, including now OTT. Welcome to Brand Studio Live, Tarun. It's a pleasure to have you here. And it's also very interesting to have someone who's in the enviable position of actually riding a small wave, a category that's thriving. So you're not really a survival conversation. We need to talk about growth. Is it business as usual for the brand, or is there fresh investment? Different conversations on marketing? What's going on?
Yeah, so I think it's almost I don't know whether to say these things, but it's almost a good time for us. And I guess somebody has to thrive in these adverse circumstances, and maybe an online entertainment business was probably best suited for people at home and people looking for finding ways of entertaining themselves. We can see globally as well as in India, there has been a huge offtake of content in this space, and it's been quite unprecedented that we've had to actually at the back end manage a lot of bandwidth issues and be able to optimize video and so on and so forth. But yes, we've grown 2x over the last 1 month and continue to grow day on day, week on week. So it's interesting times. I think it's been a tectonic shift to watching video on demand. And what happened to us is kind of unique. We've been investing in an original content library for the last 1 year, came up to about 100 originals when this happened. And I think that library that we have created is kind of priceless today.
But for many people in your category, there is also the constraint of new, fresh content, or there might be. Masking.
No, actually, Ramit, so the way we had planned out was that we were continuing to make original content. And because we've been kind of, so let me give you a context, right? If we are 100 originals, the next guy would be at 10 or 12 or 14, right? That's the difference. So we were very committed to a very active pipeline of content. And fortunately, unfortunately, we were shooting right up to 25th March. Our last show shot in Thailand and came back on the last flight to India, shooting a series. So we will have content releasing every week almost right up to July.
Wow.
That's where we have where we are covered till. Beyond that, I'm a bit worried, but we've sorted some things out, and I think the pipeline shouldn't dry out. So we've sorted ourselves up to August, but September is where we will get into trouble. But I think I'm hoping that times will change sooner than that.
And when this is all over, when everybody goes back to office, hopefully inshallah someday, what happens then? I mean, are you building habit? Are you thinking of ways to exit this bigger than you were when you entered it? How does that work?
It's now moving from mobile to television, and the big flip that we have seen to television is quite humongous. So all this while it was a mobile first phenomena, and 70-80% of consumption came in through mobiles, but now it's really the TV, and that is the big shift that we are seeing. And we invested a lot in building a lot of TV apps over the last 9 months. So we did an app for LG, for Samsung, for some of the lower end TVs, Linux TVs, Android, AFS, Apple TV, and all of that has actually come to good play for us.
Very interesting. So technology, distribution, more content, better content, experience. Are you also scaling up marketing investment or?
Yes, obviously. I mean, this is one of the categories that continues to spend. We've continued to spend quite handsomely last month, and will spend in the coming few months. I think this is the time to be able to reach out to new customers, to be able to convert customers, to be able to service customers, retarget customers who've actually dropped out a while ago. And yes, I mean, this is the time to keep them home and keep them entertained.
I have a question. The social distancing norms are going to be there for a very long period. How do you solve for the content creation in that scenario? I mean, a lot of scripts have to change, a lot of settings have to change.
So we've created a very detailed SOP at ourselves, as well as at the IMEI, as well as the IPF, as well as with the Film Association. And it's quite interesting what we're looking to do, Manish. So we're looking to get a crew together, test the crew, put them in a buffer zone, then get them in a locked up situation in one location. Nobody comes in, nobody goes out, and they shoot the entire thing, and only then do they go home. People don't come to work every single day and don't have the opportunity of interacting with others, so that they don't inflict themselves to any kind of risk in that sense.
With the video on demand growing like you're predicting, do you see advertising dying soon because subscription revenue is so good that you don't need advertising at all. And conversely, the viewers also saying the hell with advertising, don't interrupt my entertainment.
So, Karti, we will keep coming back to you and you will keep spending with us. So, there's no going away on that. But yes, we do see a lot of AWOD to SWOT conversion where people can afford and want to afford. People move from AWOD to SWOT quite quickly. We're also launching a light pack which will be an advertising come subscription pack where you can watch premium content, but also because it's price sensitive, so you get a little bit of lower pricing on that content. Plus, on categories like live channels and news, we do continue to serve advertising, but there is no other way to take that out. So, what we've developed is a very interesting technology to be able to serve targeted programmatic advertising on linear channels, replacing the feed or the advertising that comes on the linear channels. This is dynamic ad insertion, which programmatically serves on the digital feed of the live channel.
And on Karti's question, I will say thank you so much to Tarun. Thank you for joining us. My next guest is Manish Dureja, Managing Director and CEO of Intermiles, erstwhile Jet Privilege. Manish comes with over 20 years of experience across loyalty, management, business, and marketing. He's also an active member of many professional societies and a marketing thought leader. Let me ask you this. The truth is, it's not about when, but how. And in so many ways, the planning that we are doing for our brands right now is about what happens when we are past this. Managements need to be thinking about what happens when the impasse ends, how to get out in front, maybe recover lost ground. Or is it still about managing this uncertain period, which is brought enough on the plate for us?
Yes, you're right. I think the important aspect is around understanding where we are today. And I think the foremost priority for businesses to look after their employees and well-being and the family and our customers. And we need to stay relevant in that context to keep communicating and ensuring we are doing everything to protect them as well as our employees and their loyalty and their business with us. And build resilience. And in that context, I think the question which is coming across is that for us, we need to have dual responsibility, not only manage the current one, which is the current challenge which is there, but also foresee what changes are going to happen. But also take time to understand what is going to change and how do we plan for it to engage with our customers. Entertainment dining is going to move in-house. So that is one section of the lifestyle which is going to completely be not relevant over the period of next 6 to 8 months. And sometimes we have to figure out how do we create exclusive experiences which can be delivered at your doorstep. We started off with engaging with members on webinars to understand and give them something to worry about, to also reward them for staying indoors. A lot of people will start to prefer personal space, and therefore in that context a mix of options will be there, wherein not going to office but working remotely in a distributed environment. And somewhere the low ticket consumption is going to increase. Question now is not about when, but how. How are we going to come out of this entire thing? Are we prepared for it? Our business model is prepared for it. And how can we actually take some opportunity in this time to create a proposition which will be relevant and we stay relevant, not only in the 30, 60, 90-day period till the time this becomes, this period is going on, but also in the long run. And therefore, what we did was we created a 369 approach. So 30, 60, 90 plan for the current situation, because we foresee this is going to continue for a fairly long time. And also created a 369 approach, which is 3 month, 6 month, 9 month scenario. And we narrowed down to, okay, this entire situation, by the time it happens, it will take some amount of time to get some clarity. And therefore 6 months is given. And we keep iterating and keep extending our runway and keep extending the plan around that period. For us, it was important to change the narrative entirely within the organization, to start thinking about what we need to do and how we're going to achieve certain things.
So, Manish, my question for you is, in this current context, what is a communication brief? I'm sure that you're inundated with calls, and you have some outgoing communication as well, because you have these crazy number of relationships to manage. What does a communication brief look like?
So communication is at all stakeholder levels with our partners. We are in active touch with them to get everybody comfort as to how we are operating and how we are managing. With our customers, those who have travel bookings with their air or hotel, we have proactively reached out to them, canceling and giving them advice on what needs to be done, whether it's for approval side or the redemption side. And at the stakeholder level, we have regular meetings with the board as well as the other partners who are engaged with us. We've done a significant amount of it. But with members per se, I think the biggest thing which we need to solve and we are currently working out is we can't be seen as a brand to push to sell. I mean, Intermiles was a travel and lifestyle centric, and travel lifestyle centric is something which is not going to be top of the mind for foreseeable future. And travel demand is going to take time to come back. And in the last 30 days, we have tied up with about 12 new partners and planning to roll out offers to them. So that's one peg with our members to stay relevant. And the second is we were in the midst of our campaign. We had to abandon the campaign, which was going on in the month of March first week. And our app was just out. So we're just pivoting as we go along to drive engagement. So if you stay at home and download the app, we're rewarding you. And that's one way to kind of be relevant as well as be cognizant of the current situation which the customers are facing.
Given that for about a month now at least, all employers have learned that their employees don't really need to travel, at least in the domestic context, as much as they used to. Do you see, regardless of how COVID plays out, that cost-conscious employers will shut down business travel or minimize it very aggressively? Say 95% of it is shut down. And if that happens, what's going to happen to the airline industry and to all our behaviors in this context, and therefore as a downstream impact to your business as well?
So I think, Karthi, there is a short-term impact, there is a long-term impact. Clearly, we have seen the entire trade and world. Travel is an integral portion. And India is at a stage where it needs to capture the whatever is happening in China, and businesses are going to a lot of new businesses are moving into India. In that context, travel will play an important role, and business travel in that context, from a long-term perspective, will remain relevant. It will, by end of next year, is where the world demand will be there, provided most airlines are there, because there is a significant challenge on there. But on the business side of it, on the business demand side of it, yes, there will be a temporary impact. But what has happened way back in 9/11 time period, when security apparatus and security changes were brought in, and the world collaborated to bring about regulation as well as protocols to ensure customers feel safe and confident about traveling. Similar thing will happen again. And there are various concepts being floated, whether it is a medical passport or a health passport being attached to identify whether you are from a safe zone or a green zone. Some of these concepts are at a conceptual, some of these ideas are at concept stage. That's for the leisure travel, or business travel, which is essential and for you have to go is there. But non-essential business travel, and there will be a lot of non-essential business travel which will come in this category, will certainly take an impact for a limited period of time. And we are seeing this in a 2020 as an impact. But in the long run, yes, it will come back.
How do you see yourself dealing with expanding your portfolio of redemptions? Where do you want to take it? Where do you see the consumer is going? Is it going to stay purely digital? Are you going to do more lifestyle and banking? So how do you see this going?
Digital is the way forward. We started long time back with an approach to create platform-driven approach, which is bring the customer on the same platform for experiencing and discovery and complete the booking. So we were not an e-commerce player. We never had commerce capability earlier because loyalty played a role after the transaction is done. With travel, lifestyle, loyalty, and payment are the four broad verticals on which we will engage. And the partnerships are spanning across any area. But yes, to answer your question, digital is going to be a key driver.
On that note, Manish, thank you very much for having shared.
Thank you.
My next guest is Aparna Mahesh, Chief Marketing Officer, Bank Bazaar. Aparna brings with her diverse experience in marketing and advertising, having worked across industries such as e-commerce, FMCG, IT, and financial services. Bank Bazaar, Aparna drives all marketing efforts, including mass media campaigns, performance, brand campaigns. Let me ask you an all-encompassing question here. Everybody is talking about business continuity plan. Are people talking about brand continuity? Plans active enough, too active? What's going on in this transition? How critical is that conversation? What are you taking into account? What's happening in your boardroom?
Sure. So let me start by a statement, a dramatic one. I believe that every generation, right, sees an event which hyphenates its life, into a pre and a post. The luckier ones escape with slightly minor events. I think for this generation, definitely, my take is that it's going to be COVID, right? We are going to be talking about pre and post COVID for a long time to come. I think it's changed us in many ways that we probably aren't even, we haven't come to grips with it. We haven't understood it, and we will discover it as the days unfold. So coming to businesses, I think a lot of our speakers have already said, I think the brand ultimately is the emotional connect between a business and the consumer, right? It plays the role of the bridge. So I don't really see how you can do business continuity planning without actually accounting for brand continuity planning. My take is that in a large way, they're one and the same, or at least two sides of the same coin. I think when brand custodians are talking about brand continuity planning, there are some very key questions that they need to be asking themselves. One is, will there be continuity in the old sense at all? Right? When we talked about continuity plans, it was not for situations like this, I can safely say. So what is continuity? I think we need to pull that word apart and try and see what it means, because I don't think anyone is going to pick up from where they left off pre-COVID and continue to move on as if nothing happened. So that I think is very important, right? Second, I think linked to point one is, will the brand be relevant the way that it was pre-COVID? Will it continue to have the same kind of relevance post-COVID? Very, very important. What is relevant, what is not. So I think a lot of deep diving has to happen into the anatomy of the brand itself to figure out what goes, what stays. In that sense, I think, and if you realize that some parts are not relevant, very quickly you need to be thinking on your feet in terms of what is the pivot strategy. We believe that there are a lot of irreversible changes that have happened. I mean, they say it's, we've all been in lockdown for several days. New habits have been formed. I don't think those habits are going to be given up that easily. I think those are going to be the new realities for a lot of us. So for instance, simple example, I think we're never going to look at human interaction, physical interaction the same again. I think we're going to look to minimize it to the furthest possible extent, reducing all physical interaction only for very, very important people for our social circle, family, and things like that. I think anything that can be serviced digitally will now move digitally. I think that's something that I hear a lot of our speakers seeming to share the same sentiment. So in a sense, I believe the task before a lot of us brand custodians is essentially figuring out what is the short-term plan and what is the long-term plan to continue to, to walk the consumer. In a way, the consumers came crashing down, when we do Maslow's hierarchy, I think people came crashing down right to the bottom, right? Because we were worried about things like food and health and shelter. I think as we make our way back, we will walk a different path. And I think it's important that brands also sort of understand what the new reality is and help consumers back up.
Uh, what is your brand continuity plan look like? Give us a broad. Don't give us details if you can't. But
So I think, it's important that a brand takes care of all its stakeholders, right? So for us, from day one, we've been addressing the employees, our consumers, and our business partners. In a sense, we're a B2B and a B2C brand, right? Employees, very importantly, because as soon as we were able, we had about 50% of our customer service employees back on track working from home. It was very important that they were in complete alignment with where the brand is headed, what is happening. So when they're talking to the consumers, they were speaking the language that we wanted them to. I think on the consumer front, honestly, with financial services, even at the best of times, there's a lot of confusion. There are a lot of questions. There's a lot of search for information. And these, I think, are worst of times. So I think that's only gone up infinitely. And finally, and most importantly, of course, is the BCP with our partners, right? Which would be the various BFSI partners that we work with. I think there the strategy has been to sort of align with them on what the future, which we believe is going to be entirely contactless when it comes to finance, how that will be, what needs to happen, how is it that we can partner with them to that point. So very, very broadly, I mean, those have been the three pillars on which our business continuity plan, brand continuity plan has been resting on.
Taking the premise of contactless relationships and building a brand on top of that, you are in a good place, aren't you?
Yes, we are. I mean, digital, I think the push has happened.
Customers are going to be, and my assumption is that customers are going to be far more conscious about saving and spending less. The question is, where will they save and where will they deploy this saving to? Any thoughts around that?
So, see, these are very volatile times. Usually, what we've seen is a large chunk of our customers are the millennials. They are all within the age groups of, let's say, a 25 to a 40. What we've seen year on year when we do a lot of studies with them is there is a fairly high tendency to save. In fact, the youngest age group they claim to be putting away at least 30 to 35% of their income in savings. There is an affinity to mutual funds among the younger group. And there's also a fairly healthy percentage of these people who have some form of insurance or the other. So I think in ordinary times, what we are seeing is, and given the amount of investments that has happened in terms of building awareness about mutual funds, it seems to be an instrument of choice for a lot of the younger generation. That said, given what we've been seeing and the way things have evolved over the last 2 or 3 months, I think there will be an element of conservatism that we will see. In fact, it'll be very interesting to see after what has happened with the liquid funds. It'll be very interesting to see if suddenly everyone decides that an FD is a better option. So these things, gold, suddenly there seems to be a revived interest in that. I think these are rapidly evolving. What we've seen happening over the last couple of years definitely is putting away money in mutual funds. Whether that continues to happen or not right now, it remains to be seen. I think it'll become clearer in a few months from now.
If I may add, I'd like to say that while there is some risk that Aparna is right, that there may be a flight to what can be seen as safe harbor, which is FDs and things like that, particularly for those who are beginning their savings and investment journeys, I would say that the right thing for them to do is to start investing in equity in one form or the other, whether it's equity mutual funds or directly in equity, because there is no time like a crisis to start building your corpuses. Everyone is always looking for saying that I missed the whole run and I wish I had invested 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, here's your chance. Your wishes come true. So to all young people, at the very least, my recommendation would be to start investing now and still invest systematically.
I'm going to say thank you to Aparna. Thank you for having added to this session. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode and season of Brand Studio Live, co-hosted by the HD Brand Studio and DMA Asia. What an incredible journey it's been, and to think we would end the season with an episode done digitally. A heartfelt thanks to our friends from DMA Asia and to oneself for helping power this event. Big round of applause for all the brand masters who took out the time to be with us, share their insights and experiences. As of today, I think the show has recorded 200 plus brand leaders. Thank you to Fever FM, been a radio partner, utilized this show. With that, it's time for me to sign off. Stay home, be safe.